Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. You heard the music, you know what that means. Amazing content is coming your way, and interesting content. Welcome here to Hydrogen Fuel Cells Europe, where we have been talking about hydrogen and fuel cells since 1995. Now, that's a long time. However, things have never been moving as quickly as they are right now. It's a competitive environment, but it's also a very dynamic environment. And that's why it's more important than ever to get some insights into this dynamic environment. And I'm glad we found an expert on the topic. And it's not just an expert on the topic of the global market dynamics of hydrogen, but he's also an expert here on the stage because Joris, our guest that we're welcoming here, actually has been moderating talks throughout the week. So he's going to be more comfortable than ever. That means he's going to be able to answer your questions in a way that has never been done on the podium before here. I'm sure it's going to be a great talk, and I'm looking forward to it. So, talking about insights into the global hydrogen market dynamics, from Hinicio, the hydrogen strategy consultant and moderator, can I please get a warm applause for Joris Vilasblom. So, Joris, welcome to the podium here on the other side. How does it feel?
Good. It feels nice here. Quite roomy. I must say you've set the bar really high for me today, so you're making me a little bit nervous, but I think we will manage.
I'm sure you'll deliver. I have a lot of faith in you. So, for the people who haven't been watching you all week here, could you maybe introduce yourself, and while you're at it, maybe also the company then?
Sure. So my name is Joris Vilasblom. I work as a strategy consultant at Hinicio. We've been around since 2006. And what I really like about the name Hinicio is that it really represents our company. So the Initio part, that stands for initiation. And since 2006 or even before then, we believed that hydrogen would play a crucial role in the energy transition. So therefore we named the company Hinicio, Hydrogen Initiators.
2006, that is indeed a long time. So just to be clear, strategy consulting specifically for hydrogen.
Exactly. So what we do is we help companies that are in the hydrogen sector or that are looking to enter the hydrogen sector find their way around, really. So we do this we have roughly 4 pillars, I would say. One is business and strategy consulting. One is M&A and investment support. A very important one, regulatory and policy monitoring, and then finally project development assistance, where we help our clients develop their projects.
I'd love to dive deeper into those 4 pillars, but before we do, we are here with 270-something exhibitors. That's a lot. They're all in the hydrogen industry already. What makes Hinicio more qualified to be talking about hydrogen strategy than any other of these 270 people here?
That's a great question, and I think that really comes down to our roots. As I said, we've been around since 2006, and we've really helped create this hydrogen sector. So what we've seen is that hydrogen, or the hydrogen sector, really comes from this deep need for decarbonization. And from the start, together with public parties, governments, the European Union, we've been working together to create this hydrogen market, to create this sector, and to really help it grow. So it really makes me happy to see that every year the fair here in Hanover, the hydrogen and fuel cells becomes bigger. And this year, I believe we grew about 25%. So it's great to see that the sector is growing.
I can imagine. Must be good for business. So these pillars you mentioned, let's get to them one by one. First one was business and strategy consulting. What is it?
Well, it's a very broad field of work. What we mainly do is companies that are already in the hydrogen sector, we help them identify new opportunities. A big one, of course, this year that everybody has been talking about is the US. The IRA, the Inflation Reduction Act, creates some huge opportunities for hydrogen in the US, but a lot of the hydrogen companies are based in Europe or in Asia. And the US is a very, very different market. So we help them position themselves in this market to go to market. Essentially, a go-to-market strategy is what we call it, where we identify the opportunities, we identify what's key in entering that market, and we help them develop a roadmap on how to get there. And of course, there's many other ways to help businesses develop their strategies, but that's just one of them.
All right, sounds clear. Second pillar, mergers and acquisitions and investment support. Sounds a bit more boring to me. What does that entail?
Yeah, I mean, it's very, very important, right? We live in a world where without money, you don't get anywhere. So you need the investment. You need to make sure you have the money to do what you want to do. I think what we've seen throughout the week, that there is not a lack of willingness to act. Everybody wants to act. Everybody wants to decarbonize. But we need to get the money. We need to get the funding in order to make that work. What we also see, I mean, we have 270 plus exhibitors this year. And I think there might be some consolidation of that over the years where new startups, they either get investment or they get acquired by big companies. And we can help support that because we know the hydrogen sector, we know the technology, we know what makes something work or what doesn't make it work. And then I think this expert view really helps to do proper due diligence.
And because if we're talking about this investment support, is that a very hydrogen-specific knowledge that you need to offer the support to your clients there?
Yes, definitely, because really it's hard to let's say value knowledge, right? It's hard to know whether this idea or that idea is worth something, how much this IP is worth. And for that, you really need to deeply understand the sector. You need to deeply understand the market in order to properly evaluate a company.
And is it then just private funding we're talking about, or are we also talking about EU funding and all the subsidies we have going on?
Yeah, so a big part of our work is actually supporting companies in applying for public funding. Over the winter this year, we've done many ETS Innovation Fund supports, where we help companies apply for these European funding schemes, which have tremendous amounts of money available for innovation and for the development of hydrogen technology. And we want to make sure that this goes to the people that are actually innovating and that are actually making a difference. And that's why we help them to apply for this funding.
Helping to grow the market, for sure. Okay, this next pillar, policy and regulatory support. When I hear policy and I see these orange floors, so I know we're in the hydrogen sector here, there are two giant elephants in the room that we need to discuss, right? We got the European elephant and we got the US elephant. Let's start with the US one, the Inflation Reduction Act. I have talked to quite some exhibitors this week, and I have heard more than once, almost free green hydrogen is going to enter Europe from the US. Is it going to happen?
Well, the IRA for sure is very impactful. I'll say that, especially the production tax credits that are announced for green hydrogen, also for blue hydrogen. There's not as big of a, let's say, distinction that they make in the US. And yeah, it's going to be huge, if I quote one of our favorite Americans. But yeah, if I have to compare the US incentives to the European ones, you can really also see a difference in mentality and a difference in how people look at the world. From Europe, we see a very top-down approach. We see the European Commission setting targets of 2 times 40 gigawatts by 2030, and then delegating that over the different member states, saying, okay, there's going to be this much gigawatts of electrolyzers, there's going to be this much there, and that's how they handle it. And everybody has to comply to a certain amount of hydrogen. But in the US, it's the complete opposite. It's really a bottom-up approach. I also like to say that the carrot and the stick. In Europe, it's you get the stick if you don't comply. In the US, you get a carrot if you do create green hydrogen. And that creates a completely different market dynamic, because in the US, everybody can get a piece of the pie, but you don't know how big the pie is going to be, because that still remains open, and that makes it really difficult to let's say predict how big that market's going to be and where exactly in the US, because it's a huge country, the demand is going to be the biggest.
So the carrot and the stick, I think that's an analogy that definitely makes sense. If you look at both of these approaches existing in a vacuum, they both make sense, and I think they could both work, right? However, it's a global market these days. So neither of these approaches are existing in a vacuum. They have impact on each other, and there's the market dynamics. So how do these two interact, and what impact do you see on the field of hydrogen?
Yeah, to quote you, the elephant in the room is that this might create, let's say, a source and a sink effect, where you have a sink of hydrogen in Europe, where all of the use of hydrogen is incentivized, and you have a source of hydrogen production in the US, where the costs are being brought down by this IRA. And I think something that a lot of European companies, or a lot of people in general, are fearing is that you get this constant stream of hydrogen across the Atlantic, being driven by the combination of the RED 2 and 3 and the IRA in the US. I think this was already very clear about fall of last year, when the IRA came out. In just a few weeks, there was already a lot of noise from, for instance, Hydrogen Europe, saying, we need to make sure that this doesn't create this imbalance in the global market, and that not all of the investments that would have otherwise taken place in Europe are now going to stream across the Atlantic to the US.
And you guys do strategy consulting, right? So what kinds of services or things do you do for your customers to help them get through this, or find out the best way to get through this?
Yeah, so one of the things we do, of course, is this policy monitoring, where we help our clients really understand deeply what these delegated acts and all these directives from the EU mean, and how they translate into a business context. Because I don't know if you've ever read a delegated act, but it's not very entertaining,
it's
I
not
would
fun.
say.
No, it's not fun.
So it's really important to get the key messages out of there and give that to the client. And of course, we help them understand whether they should be looking at places like the US, whether they should be looking at taking their operations overseas. And then we're not even talking just about the US. I mean, some other big potential players are Chile, Namibia, all of the usual suspects, I would say, where the sun shines and the wind blows every single day, and you can create some fairly cheap hydrogen.
All right, so that's one of the two elephants tackled then. This was the US elephant, the IRA. In Europe, we also have some interesting, to say the least, policy developments going on with the delegated act focusing on the certification of green hydrogen that was presented in February this year. What is this delegated act about, and why is it so important?
Yeah, so you could see this delegated act on RFMBO as like the rule book on green hydrogen. It really sets in stone what you need to comply to in order to have your hydrogen certified as RFMBO, renewable fuel of non-biological origin. Quite a mouthful, but that's essentially what we have come to understand as green hydrogen. And I think this delegated act is crucial to the further development of hydrogen projects, because what we've seen in the past years is that there's a lot of willingness to act, there's a lot of announcements, a lot of motions of understanding being signed between countries, between players, a lot of consortiums being formed. But what we have seen a bit of a lack of, or what's been pending, is the FIDs, the final investment decisions, just because you need to make sure that your project is green. You need to make sure that you can capture this green hydrogen premium in order to be bankable. Because on a purely cost-to-cost basis, we're not there yet having green hydrogen compete with gray hydrogen. So we really need this policy incentive to create this premium. And this delegated act on RFMBO will play a key role there, because that sets the rules such that you can check your projects versus these delegated acts.
So this framework, it's basically going to provide a framework to maintain that renewable aspect of the electricity all the way at the start and carry that over to hydrogen and be able to call it green hydrogen, and then maybe even further on to methanol, ammonia, etc.
Exactly. So the hydrogen is just the carrier, right? It's never the end product. It's always either a carrier of energy, or it's a feedstock for ammonia, for methanol, for all of these different products. And you need to make sure you can indeed track whether this product that you're buying, for instance, if you're pumping at a gas station, well, mostly there's not ammonia in there, but or methanol. But let's say there is. You need to make sure that you track the energy content all the way from the solar power or the wind power to the end user, in order to really capture the premium that it brings. And what's been lacking so far is really this framework. So this is also a service that we've started offering to our clients, which we call pre-certification, where we look at the latest versions of this delegated act, of this rule book on green hydrogen, and see whether the projects that our clients are developing actually comply with what's in there, and whether they are actually producing a green product. Because they can take that to the banks, they can take that to the investors to see, hey, look, this project is going to actually produce green hydrogen. It will be able to capture the premium, and therefore it will be able to make a profit.
And therefore that is a service that might be vital to getting those final investment decisions actually ramping up.
I think so.
Okay, perfect. So that was pillar number 3, the policy and regulatory support. There was a fourth one, project development assistance. Can you describe it, please?
Yes. So this pre-certification that I just talked about is really sort of the bridge between the regulatory support and the project development assistance. I already spoke about getting the financial picture ready for these projects, getting the business case closed. And the certification is just one part of that. Another super interesting part, I think, is systems engineering, where we look at how do we go actually physically and in technically from the PV, from the wind energy, all the way to ammonia, to methanol, to even sustainable aviation fuel. If you know a little bit about the chemical sector, then you know that these processes really want to operate at a constant throughput all the time, because they're very expensive machines and you want to use them as much as possible. The very big issue that we're facing now, switching to green hydrogen as a feedstock, is that we have wind and we have solar. So essentially, we have these inputs that are intermittent, so they're not there all the time, and we need to connect that to a constant process. And that's quite a challenge, because you need to size everything optimally. You need to make sure that you have hydrogen available all the time to make sure that you can keep producing your end product. But you need to do that in the most economically efficient way. And therefore, we've developed this proprietary tool. We call it Andrea. And there we essentially take all of the inputs. We take the solar profiles, the wind profiles, all of the costs of all the singular components, from electrolyzers, Haber-Bosch facilities, hydrogen storage. We put it all in there, and then it tells us what the most economical way is to produce, this end product.
Now, this sounds a lot like engineering. And earlier we were talking about, market dynamics and a bit more of the financial side. Seems like quite a stretch, like a different business altogether, perhaps. How do you manage to have all of these capabilities in the company?
So actually we have a worldwide team working together. I'm personally based in our Rotterdam office, but we also have offices in Brussels, Paris, a few offices in Latin America. And those actually are the offices that are really specialized in this systems engineering and in this project development assistance. And quite recently we've opened another office in the US, which is currently our most rapidly growing office, of course, a little bit as a result of the IRA. Next to that, December of last year, Inicio became part of the Vulcan Group, which is an engineering company. So together with Vulcan, we're able to help our clients further. So they come from the EPC, from the engineering side, and we come more upstream from the strategy and the PDA and the pre-feasibility side. And now we're sort of starting to close that gap in between and make sure we can help our clients all the way from even thinking about doing something to hydrogen to actually realizing their own hydrogen production plants. And I think that's super cool that we are able to do that now.
All right. We're pretty much out of time. So unfortunately, I'm not going to ask you to ask any questions to Joris here on the stage. However, he's going to be walking around here. I'm sure he's going to take that bun out, and it's going to be long hair, so you can recognize him from a long distance. So find the guy with the long hair and ask all your questions. Joris, thank you so much for the talk. I think I had a great time.
Thank you for having me, Joost. And my name, I believe, is on the screen. So if you want to find me, feel free to add me on LinkedIn as well, and then we can have a chat about hydrogen. Thank you, Joost.
All right, thank you so much. And a warm applause, indeed.